All right, there's a few special announcements I have for you today. This episode has been sponsored by Andy Bovender of the Bovender team out of the Carolinas. They actually cover 5 cities, so if you have a client moving to that area, reach out to them. Today, I sit down with G. Ranasinha, who is a unbelievable master marketer. Before you get started on this episode, get out a pen and paper because it is 100% going to be a masterclass for you. And as my next announcement, if you're interested in learning more about the Inner Circle group, click the link below to join the waitlist. Unfortunately, we hit capacity and we're now waitlisting people. And as always, I'm your host and San Francisco referral partner, Shawn Kunkler.
Too many.
Gee, we are live, man. Thanks for joining me.
Pleasure to be here. Delighted to be invited, Shawn.
I'm excited to unpack this conversation with you. The podcast is obviously directed towards realtors. I think, for the most part, have a massive problem with marketing, how to approach it, how to think about it, how to just, you name it, they're confused about it. And so I just want to kind of dive headfirst right in. But before we do, in a couple sentences, who are you and what do you do?
I am G. Ranasinha. I run a marketing agency and behavioral science consultancy called Customer-Centric, which I've been doing for the past 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I say that every year. 17, 16, 17? Yes. There's 19 of us in 9 countries. 9 of us are in the US. As you can probably tell by my accent, I'm not from the US. I'm actually based in northeastern France. Yes, I don't sound northeastern French either. It's because originally I'm a Brit. But I've been living over here for nearly 25 years. Yeah. And we work with startups and small businesses in around 20 countries. I will say the majority of our business comes out of the US. Yes, even though we're based in Europe. No, I don't understand why either. Apparently there's this thing called the interweb. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but apparently it's quite popular nowadays to the youth. And yeah. So yeah, 80% of our clients are in the US, coast to coast, pretty much all over the place. No particular category or industry. Everything from fintech to healthcare to publishing to tech to lots of different areas.
That's fascinating. So in having the behavioral science part of it, and if we can talk about the US, because that's where the bulk of the listeners are, do you find from coast to coast that the behavior of people is different in terms of marketing and communicating to them?
I think it depends on the product, depends on the industry, depends on the way that you're choosing to segment. I wouldn't like to categorize behavior based upon geography, because I think that's a bit lazy, to be honest.
That's fair.
I think it's like people when they start talking about millennials or Gen Z or Gen A, or now we've got Gen B. As of this year, we've got Gen B. Do you know about that? As of 2025 is the birth of Gen B.
My son just told me, and I was like, "What? Already?" Yeah. It's weird. I feel like they're speeding them up. They're shorter years, or maybe I'm just getting.
Yeah. That's what old people say, though, Shawn. Right? That's what we tend to say. Oh, I remember when all of this was fields. Yeah. No, we don't say that sort of stuff anymore. No, it's when people say, "Oh yeah, but millennials, they don't think like us, they don't act like us. They're totally different. Their priorities are different. The way they consume content is different. The way that they buy it's all utter horseshit." Okay,
really,
absolute horseshit. Categorizing people by age is lazy marketing. Okay, there are just as many people adept with buying online or consuming content on social media who are over 50 as there are under 50. There are plenty of absolute doofuses in their 20s and 30s. I know because I teach a lot of them myself, who haven't got a clue about digital channels optimization. And at the same time, I know plenty of people who are over 50, over 70, who are fully digitally encumbered and adept in using such channels. So I think categorizing people by age is ridiculous. You might as well say, oh yeah, well all left-handed people are more creative than right-handed people, or Cancerians are more emotional than Aquarians. I mean, it's just total and utter nonsense. Sorry, that was not the answer to your question.
No, but I think that's fascinating, because in this industry, agents are always concerned, especially when it's them producing the marketing, like on the social side of it. The age piece comes up a lot in terms of their audience and then in terms of themselves. So I love that you just basically squashed that right out of the gate.
No, I think you should be looking at customer segments and customer behavior and channel consumption, media consumption, irrespective of age. I don't think age is a particularly good variable to base this thing on. Now, for realtors, obviously, age is important because you're targeting. You're making educated guesses in terms of age because of income.
Correct.
Usually, you're not going to show a $10 million home to a first-time buyer who's 22 years old. I get it, right? But the behavioral drivers that influence that purchase are not age dependent.
Mm-hmm.
There are other levers that you can pull to actually bring that about.
Within this space, doing, let's say, Facebook ads, just as a low-hanging fruit example, you can age segment, but for realtors, it's actually illegal. We can't. It's considered.
Right?
Yeah, it's discriminatory. You do have to be a minimum age to purchase a property, but
sure.
Outside of that, there's very little demographic information you could input because it's just grossly illegal for this industry. But I do want to go back to one thing that you actually said it twice in two different parts: segmenting. I know that's one area, one, agents don't do, and two, I think they don't do it because they don't know what the heck it is. So can you just unpack that one?
Okay, so segmentation is part of the basic marketing process. Okay, so to describe segmentation in isolation doesn't quite make sense. So we need to sort of backtrack a little. So if you can give me a little bit of leeway.
Sure.
When all of us are putting together a marketing process for our business, okay, everything has to start with diagnosis. Okay, we need to work out what the hell is going on, what's working, what's not working, what the pain points are, right? All of this sort of stuff because you need to know what the problem is before you can come up with a solution. Okay.
Sure.
Once we've done the diagnosis, then we can start looking at generating insights from the data that we get, and it's usually from qualitative research. So that's interviews and focus groups and ethnography and whatever else to understand the market and the business's place within the market. And then we get into once we've done the qual, we get into quantitative data, okay, which is usually some kind of survey. You've seen the sort of thing, NPR scores. How likely are you to buy again from 0 to 10, and those sorts of things, okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, once we've done all of that, we then get into what marketers call STP, which is segmentation, targeting, and positioning, okay? So segmentation is looking at your TAM, TAM. Sorry, marketers are full of TLAs, three-letter acronyms. Okay. TAM is total addressable market. People who actually could buy from you at some point in time, maybe not today, maybe 6 months, maybe 6 years, but they are a possible target for the services that you're offering. Okay? So when we look at our total addressable market, we try to look at the profile of buyer. Okay, so first homeowners under 25, under 30s, for instance, dual income, no kids, or dinkies as we used to call them. I don't know if you guys call them that as well.
I'm Gen X, so that's what we call them.
Okay, right. Or maybe you're, another segment could be older couples who've had kids who've now left the family home and they're now downsizing to sort of realize some of the inherent value they've had in their larger property so they can have a bit of fun, right? Do some crazy things, buy red sports cars or yachts or whatever else literally floats your boat. Okay, so all of these you can see as being archetypes. You can even call them personas, or in marketing land we would call them segments. Now the way those segments are distributed within your total addressable market, there are various distribution group terms. I don't want to go sort of too far down this into the marketing theory black hole, but let's just for all intents and purposes, let's just say that the distribution is quite stochastic, so it's quite random throughout the addressable market you have, but you can still find commonalities. Certain buttons that you can push that can you act as levers for influencing the purchasing decision. And there are commonalities within those. Now, it may be generational, it may be income-based, it may be socioeconomic, it may be geographical, okay? And there are 101 different possible ways of slicing and dicing these. But you can find commonalities, and you need to be able to segment your total addressable market, because once you get to the tactical side of marketing, which is what people think marketing actually is, which is basically the promotion side, the communication side, which is only a tiny percentage of what marketing is all about. Okay, but it's the 1/10 of the iceberg that you see above the waterline. So that's what people think marketing is all about. But you need to be able to vary your messaging according to segment, which you, as a salesperson, you automatically do. It's not something you need to think about.
Sure.
But in marketing, you need to schematize. That's not really a word, but I've invented it, so I'm copywriting it. So there, right?
It works.
You need to be able to put together a formula, because otherwise you can't scale the business, right? Because everything's sort of stuck with you. So you need to be able to say, okay, we're after this particular type of buyer with this particular message, with this range of homes that we're looking, or commercial property, whatever we're talking about. Okay. And which would be different. You may even have, because these things don't necessarily exist in isolation. You may have overlap. Okay, there may be, 50-something people who are looking to buy a $3 million home, but there may be some 25-year-old YouTube superstar who wants to do the same thing. Okay, so they're not necessarily, the Venn diagram may well overlap, if you get my point, right?
Yeah.
But we still need to put a stick in the ground on our messaging, which is going to be different. The priorities, you're selling a home, right? So the features are pretty much self-explanatory. but the way that you articulate them and the order in which you articulate them are going to be different depending on the type of prospective homeowner that you're looking to convert, right? I mean, you know this stuff. It's part of who you are, obviously, as a realtor. You get it.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is extrapolate that away from the industry, so we have a repeatable process, irrespective of the industry that we're in, that we can then automate and scale in a predictable way.
Mm-hmm.
Segmentation is stereotypes. Archetypes is probably a better word.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I love the correction. That was so much more information. And you're right. In my mind, I've been in sales for 25 plus years, and so my mind.
Obviously, you started when you were 3 years old, right?
I started when I was 3. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I had to sell on why I needed milk now.
Right.
It's funny, they say this other industry is the oldest industry in the world, but I actually argue that it's sales.
We're all selling. All of us.
All of
us are selling all of the time.
I think we're marketing all the time and we're selling all the time. And it's funny that there's like this misunderstanding about it. But I do really love your explanation of where that segmentation goes, and it's probably more of the archetype and not these other things that I thought they were. And then the other thing that I thought was really fascinating, and I wrote it down, is, and you're 100% spot on, and we do this as salespeople intuitively, but I didn't realize I was doing this, but when I'm communicating to different people, I'm saying the same things. I'm just changing the sequence in which I'm saying them from their most important to least important.
And you do it intuitively, right?
Yeah.
Shawn, you don't think about it, right? Because you're a salesperson. You do it intuitively and empathically.
That's a huge piece of it. Yeah.
Right. So what we need to do is take a step back, because marketers are not at the coalface like sales are. Mm-hmm. So we need to be able to, like I'm using the schematize word again, we need to be able to schematize, process-driven, a pragmatic approach, so that the communication, which is not coming from sales, right? Because this is further upstream. We haven't got to the point of having a face-to-face interaction with the prospect. Okay? Right. So the communication needs to be as relevant as possible, as salient as possible to the target buyer. I mean, it's total logic, really. I mean, it's not even up for discussion, I would have thought. Like I said, it's intuitive for people who, proper salesmen. When I say proper salesmen, I mean salespeople, okay? Salespeople with an uppercase S, okay? Salespeople, okay? We're all in sales. Everybody in marketing is in sales, okay? Absolutely. And if you don't, if you have a problem with that, you should get out of the industry. Because if you think your job is to accumulate likes and comments and retweets, then you're in the wrong job, because likes and comments and retweets don't pay the bills. Sales pays bills. Sales, right?
True.
It's the end customer who pays all our salaries. Mm-hmm. Everybody. So as a marketer, you need to be comfortable with the fact that everything you need to do, you will be judged on in terms of the level of green accumulated as a result. Mm-hmm. Right? So, or anything else, if it's not selling, if you're not accumulating sales, it's not marketing, it's fluff. It's nonsense. It's ego. What we're trying to do in marketing here is to create something which is process driven, so it's independent of a particular point of failure, human point of failure, so that the whole thing can be scaled. And to do that, you need to be able to build a process by, like I said, segmenting your total addressable market, positioning your brand in a way that is clearly, demonstrably different to the 1,001 other realtors that the customer has a choice of using, okay? Which is very hard, okay? There's a number of ways of doing it. Lots of realtors, seem to work on personal brand, sticking their mugshot on bus shelters and goodness knows wherever else.
Yeah.
Which again doesn't scale, because if you're Joe Blogg's realtor, then when I pick up the phone, I want to speak to Joe Blogs.
That's the biggest problem in our industry. That 100% is
really.
That's my biggest problem, is people reach out to me and they want me to facilitate it, and there's only so many of me, and I only have so many hours in that.
Sure. Yeah. And it's a big problem. The thing is, personal brand is an easy one, right? Because lots of people have direct familiarity, experience with personal brand. Whether it's crazy Al's car lot on the corner, right? Or if you're of a certain age, you'll remember the Remington ads with a guy called Victor Kiam. Okay, I loved the razor so much I bought the company, and he was in all the ads. I don't know if you go back that far. I'm probably going back even before you, Shawn. Okay, right?
It's funny, I don't remember.
You don't remember Victor Kiam?
I do remember Men's Warehouse, but that's probably a U.S. brand and the same.
Yes, it's a U.S. brand, but Victor Kiam was international. I mean, I certainly remember. I spent far too much time looking at the TV as a kid. Yeah, Victor Kiam, top guy, and you can still find his ads on YouTube. And it was he was so impressed with the razor, he apparently bought the company, and he used to do the ads. Okay, so personal branding 101. You either loved him or hate him, and if it doesn't matter whether you loved him or hate him, you remembered him. So when you went to look for a razor, Remington came to mind. Which is all you can do as a marketer. We can't force anybody to buy anything. Okay?
100%.
All we can do is influence a person's behavior to be more aligned with buying from us as opposed to buying from someone else. So that when they are in the market to buy, they automatically think of 3, 5, 7 providers. It's always an odd number for some reason. It's the way the brain works. It's the same thing if you do bullet points on the list. You should never put 4 or 6 bullet points. It should always be an odd number. Okay, it's the way the mind categorizes things. It's called Gestalt, but that's going off the topic again. So let's come back to what I'm talking about.
That's a fascinating fact, by the way. I instantly thought of the world #1 selling book, the Bible, and it's 3. It's Father, Son, Holy Spirit. It's like it dates all the way back to like early books. 3s, 5s, 7s. They work in terms of the way the brain interprets and categorizes data. It works better when there's an odd number. Anyway, the point of what I was saying is when we're looking to buy something, we automatically bring to mind a certain number of providers within what we call in marketing our consideration set. So these are the people that we've heard of, that we know, that we trust in some way, and that we could possibly imagine buying from. Yeah. In marketing, all we can ever do is create those mental structures in a prospect's mind so that when they are in what we'd call in market, when they are in the position to buy, they think of us as well as the other ones that they're going to be thinking of on their own. Because if you don't make that initial consideration set, it's extremely unlikely that you'll get the sale. Not impossible, but extremely unlikely. Extremely unlikely. I can see that.
So that's all we can do. And then from a marketing point, from a tactical point, from the stuff that you see above the waterline, what we do is we divide our efforts unequally between brand awareness marketing and what's called performance marketing. I prefer to call it sales activation because, well, of course, performance marketing. I mean, why would you have like no performance marketing? All marketing is based upon performance. So performance marketing is, buy one, get one free, reduced commission for the next 6 weeks, or, whatever it may be. Okay. Brand awareness marketing is not the hard sell stuff. It's not free delivery, buy one, get one free, blue sells out at the end of next week, all of that nonsense. It's, trust me, I'm a realtor, if that's not an oxymoron. It's, you're buying from me, I'm an honest guy, here's a video reel of all our happy customers. It's the authenticity stuff. It's the I've been around for a long time. I'm going to be around for a long time. I'm somebody that you can trust. I'm not going to blow smoke up your tushy, right? It's all of that sort of stuff that gives you that nice, warm feeling to think that I could do business with this individual.
Right.
Okay, and that needs to be at a higher level, at an ongoing level, continuously.
Right.
Like I said, to create those mental structures, those associations in the prospect's mind, so that when they are in the market to buy, there's a residual awareness of your existence. Because if they don't know who you are, you're already going to be on the back foot, and it's going to take you a Herculean effort to actually get into that consideration set.
Yeah, and I would, from my experience, the bulk of the content that goes out is in that category, because most people on average in the US, they will own their home for 14 years.
Is that right?
Yeah. So there's like, if you try to do the performance marketing and do these things to entice them, it doesn't matter, because they could be 7 years out. It's
Right.
a really tricky dance, and that's probably the hardest nut that I've had to crack. Where how do you then find the more predisposed buyers and sellers within that? As an individual agent, I'll give you San Francisco for example. There's 6,000 active agents in a 7 by 7 mile footprint, which is small.
Wow.
But then,
Right.
then you have the brokerages. So agents hang their license at a brokerage, and there's about, I would say, maybe a half dozen that are of a significant level, and they have all the money to throw at the marketing. And so,
Right.
for an individual agent like myself to SEO, it's like impossible.
Yeah.
And so,
But I have some strong opinions about SEO, especially in the days of AI and that sort of thing. I think that the peak of SEO is gone. Okay.
I agree. The landscape,
it has, and I don't think it's the whole model that SEO was based upon. I don't think it's as relevant. It's not irrelevant, but I don't think it's as relevant today as it was, say, 10, 15 years ago. Because I think we've matured in the way that we shop for stuff.
Yeah.
And I think we find our information from other places that are less dependent upon Google, Bing, and whoever else. It's Google, really. There's nobody else. It's Google and everybody else, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and so from that perspective, we're writing blog posts and posting stuff and thinking that you're going to get traffic to your website. I mean, I just think that's just It's just so antiquated. I don't think that's realistic how people find information anymore. I see more and more the way that people consume information is on the social media channels themselves.
Yeah.
Right. Like for me, okay, I'm in marketing and I'm a B2B business. I'm looking for businesses, right? Because I sell to businesses, which means that I spend far too much time, if I'm honest, on LinkedIn, because that's the B2B social media channel, right?
100%.
And LinkedIn has been very nice to me over the years. Thank you very much, LinkedIn gods. You know, whatever I'm doing, please let me continue to do. But what the way I'm consuming, and from the customer interviews and quantitative analysis that I do with my team for customers, it seems to be borne out. We'll spend our time on a particular social media channel, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or whatever it is, knowing that if there is interesting, pertinent, informative information that we would be interested in, it would somehow find its way into our timeline.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to go out and look for it, or we don't expect to have to go out and look for it, because all of these social media channel guys, they're spending gazillions on tweaking algorithms.
True.
To throw pertinent content in front of our eyes, because they want us to stay on the platform for as long as possible, because that way they can count us as being long-term users, and so they can justify their ad costs, right? So and they actually technically disincentivize us from moving away from their platform. So if you're on Facebook as a brand and you try to post a piece of content with a link which takes somebody outside of the social media channel world, that particular post will be devalued, de-incentivized, right? I mean, already, if you have a Facebook business page and you have somebody who, quotes, likes that page, less than 0.1% of that audience will ever see an organic Facebook post from your brand.
Yeah.
And Facebook will tell you that if you want to reach these people who have expressed a particular interest in being notified of information coming from your brand, okay? These are not new people. If you want them to see your stuff, you have to pay Facebook.
Yeah.
Right?
I hate.
So they don't want you to go anywhere else. LinkedIn's the same. I mean, I'm not singling out Facebook here, right? I mean, LinkedIn's the same.
All the platforms.
Instagram's Facebook, so they're all the same. TikTok's probably the same as well.
Yeah, they all generate revenue from ads and eyeballs, and so it behooves them to keep you on that platform. Totally makes sense. But I, on the note of Facebook business pages, I hate them. Like I think I killed mine, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. Facebook completely changed the model. It's worthless. If an agent has one, kill it. It's not gonna, unless you're just shoveling money at it. They don't work.
Unless you're a really big organization.
Exactly.
I don't think it works. It's the same thing for LinkedIn business pages.
Yeah.
Right? A LinkedIn business page, it's like page 2 of Google. Nobody goes there, right? Yeah. There's just no point.
I think what's really interesting on this topic is, in the very beginning you said don't segment by age, but now we're talking about, you mentioned LinkedIn being a great platform for business, for your business, and then we've kind of talked about Facebook. I think it's interesting when you go back to the original portion when you were talking about the diagnosis it backs into, well, once you figure out the who is consuming your product, then you can then plug that into which of these social platforms is going to have that type of person that you're looking for.
Exactly. I mean, if you do your basics, right? If you do this diagnosis, the tactical plan, it almost writes itself.
Yeah, it sounds like
right?
it.
Because you know your customer, right? Too many businesses, whether we're talking about realtors or we're talking about therapists or we're talking about dentists or we're talking about pretty much anyone, they don't know their customers. They produce marketing that they like.
Yeah.
Not what their customer likes. What I always say is like when we're working with a new customer, a new client, and it may be tactical or it may be strategic or, whatever it may be. A website, for example, okay? Oh, well, I like a website that looks like this. I like this type of aesthetic. I like these types of... I don't care what you like. All I care about is what your customer likes. I don't care if you don't like the website, because the website's not for you. The website's for your customer. If it resonates with your customer to the point where they take action, then I've done my job properly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what the hell is it? Is it something that you can sort of show somebody at the golf club? Oh, look at our new whiz-bang website, which has got things flying around and car crashes and explosions and fireworks and whatever else. Is it a bragging thing? Dick swinging contest? Is that what we're talking about? Is that the point? I don't understand, right? The point is, It needs to be able to sell while you're not selling. Yeah. And if it doesn't do that, then it's pulling you down, not lifting you up.
Yeah.
And there's too many people who think they know what their customer wants, but they don't speak to customers. You should be speaking to customers. You should be speaking to prospects every single friggin' day, right? And people don't do that. And I don't know why, because especially customers who've bought from you, they want to help. They want you to do well. And they will bend over backwards if you ask them. To give you the information, even things like testimonials and this sort of thing. I mean, that's the easy stuff. But the other stuff, like, I was looking around and I suddenly stumbled upon this realtor who was talking about this, which I'd never heard before, and I found it really interesting, and I bookmarked it and I sent it to 3 of my friends. Now, that sort of information isn't picked up by any attribution software or analytics plugin or anything else. But that's how we as people share content today, right? A lot of it is what we call in marketing is called dark social. Okay, so I see something that's in my timeline, I find on the web, whatever else. I copy and paste the URL, and I email it to you. I say, hey, Shawn, I just found this. I thought it was really interesting. What do you think? Right? Or I'll email it to myself.
Yeah. And then
because I want to look at it later on.
Your whole feed changes.
Right. Absolutely. But this is how we consider products and services today, right?
Yeah.
Because we're looking for information, and whether it's consciously or subconsciously, we extrapolate ourselves out of the vernacular that the social media channel forces us into, to be able to exchange that by text, by WhatsApp. I know US don't use WhatsApp very much, but everybody else in the world does, right? So get with the program. But WhatsApp or text or email or whatever, right? It doesn't matter. But that's how we choose to share information. And there's no attribution software on the planet that actually can track all of that.
Fascinating.
So a lot of these vendors who are pushing these marketing products, these marketing tech, all you need to do is sign up for us for $500 a month, whatever else, and we'll automate this, and we do CRMs, and we do newsletters, and we do emails, and we do this. It's just a total crock of shit, because the the fundamental basic premise from which their entire system is based on is from like 2002 or something. It's not relevant to how people consume content, share content, and how the buying process has changed over the last 15, 20 years. I'm ranting. I do apologize, but it's one of those soapbox subjects, Shawn, as you can probably tell.
That was a great rant, and I want to go back. I want to go back a little bit to something that you said a little bit earlier, and then share a trick that a marketer taught me. I don't know. It was like maybe 5-ish years ago. But she said, which I was like, oh, that's brilliant. She said, basically the same thing, interview your clients and then go to all your reviews online and then pick out the common words that multiple people are using and then use the copy on your website with those words.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, because the copy of your website is written by you, but it needs to be written in the vernacular of your... Yes. Absolutely. When you're speaking with clients, interviewing clients, the best possible question you can ask, okay, is the following. What almost made you not buy from us? Just that.
That's a good one.
Isn't it?
That's worth the price of admission right there.
There you go. I aim to deliver.
That's incredible because you figure out that hole that you need to plug right now.
Absolutely. Right, but we don't ask those questions, do we?
No,
we want them to be shills. We want them to sort of just say all the good stuff and inflate our egos. That's not what we want.
It's really interesting to kind of go back to the personal brand aspect and then being the person facilitating the whole experience. It is very, very, very hard to sit with a client and ask them, what could I have done better? It's such a hard, because it becomes very personal. And so
that's why it shouldn't be you who asks that question.
Great point.
It needs to be somebody else. It doesn't have to be an agency, right? I mean, it could be somebody else in your team. It could be your wife, your spouse, right? It doesn't have to be you, right? But you've built up, because that's, at the end of the day, what hasn't changed in like thousands of years is, people don't buy from companies, people buy from people. And I don't want to piss you off to your face, right?
It's true.
I will sugarcoat the answers. You cannot trust on face value what a customer will say to you. Customer centricity is a total nutter horseshit. It's total. It's if we just did what our customers said they wanted, right? We would never have half the technologies we would have today. We'd never have the iPhone.
Yeah.
Right? We'd never have nobody Dyson vacuum cleaners, okay? Nobody ever said, do you know what? I want a vacuum cleaner that looks like it's just come out of the space shuttle and costs $800. Nobody ever said that.
Yeah.
Right? We cannot trust a customer to say exactly what's on their mind, because they will tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
Plus, they will only tell you what's bothering them today.
True.
And not what's happening tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. And we're interested in what happens tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, so that we can, to quote Gretzky, we can skate to where the puck is going to be.
Smart.
Right?
It's fascinating and interesting. I remember reading about Henry Ford, and when he interviewed farmers said, I want a faster horse.
Yes.
Not a car.
Right. Absolutely. I wouldn't use Henry. If you look a little bit deeper in terms of Henry Ford, he's not a particular, he invented the industrialized production line.
Yeah, the production line.
There wasn't a production. He actually invented the weekend. There wasn't a weekend before Henry Ford came along. I don't know if you know that. Google it, find out. Yeah. Henry Ford invented the weekend. But there's a lot of really, really bad stuff about Henry Ford.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
really. I mean,
didn't do my
yeah,
history
yeah,
on
yeah.
them.
No, no, no. Well,
I mean, I would
most of
imagine.
us weren't taught anything about Henry Ford, but oh yeah, if you want to talk about fascism and anti-Semitism and
Really?
all of this, oh
Jeez.
yeah, Henry was not a nice guy, not at all.
Noted.
Yeah, but no, well, that's not the point of the conversation. But have a look. You'll be surprised. Surprised is probably the best word to use here, until we can qualify that. But yeah, Henry Ford, as an industrialist, yes, there's a lot to admire by the man. But
As a
as a
human,
person,
not so good,
yeah, yeah.
unfortunately.
Let's move swiftly on.
Fair enough. Um, yeah, it's interesting too, from having been in the seat with, let's say I'm on a listing presentation, and then that client or that principal ultimately decides to hire a different agent on that exit interview, which is usually a brief conversation. It's you never actually get. It's such an aloof answer, and it's I've yet to figure out a way or a better way to ask to get a better answer out of it. It's always very non actionable.
It's uncomfortable for both parties, isn't it? Right.
Yeah,
It's
and I
not,
can
neither
totally.
of you really want to be there.
It's
Okay.
so true because they're done.
And
Like they've already
yeah,
moved on in their mind.
no, it's a breakup. It's not me, it's you. Right? It's a breakup. It's a Dear John
Exactly,
letter. Okay.
hundred
That's why
percent.
it can't. Those conversations can't come from you. They need to come from someone else.
Interesting. Yeah. But I also on a similar, and maybe it's just the line of questions, but if I think about why I bought the watch that I bought versus the other one, they're kind of like wishy-washy, not necessarily quantifiable reasons is my initial thought.
That's well. They can't be quantified pragmatically. They can't be quantified logically. They can't be quantified rationally. But the point is, they can be quantified emotionally.
True. I agree with that. Yeah.
Okay? Whatever we're buying, whether we're buying a pair of socks or we're buying a home, we're buying emotionally.
Yes.
Emotion is what's buying.
Yeah.
What's what? Okay? I'm spending more than my budget for a home because I want that particular, my spouse usually wants that particular home. So we need to find a ton more money for the deposit and the financing and the blah, 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 blah. That's always how it goes, right?
100%.
It's never, oh, look, it's well under budget. We can carry on and we do that. Okay, that's very, very rare. Okay,
Yeah.
we buy emotionally, we buy from the heart. And then what we do after the fact, regardless of the size of the purchase, after the fact, we post-rationalize logically.
100%. Yes. Without a
We
doubt.
tell ourselves a story. Oh, but it's in a fantastic catchment area. Look at the schools, right? Look at the land. It's already been done. All of the landscaping has been done. We just need to keep the same guy on board to carry on this. It's going to be great. It's going to be. We tell ourselves all that story, and we convince ourselves that actually it's not an unwise purchase. It's a great purchase. And if we believe that story, then we follow through. And if we don't, we back out. And that's
true.
whether we're buying a house or a watch or a pair of shoes or a pair of socks.
Yeah. And it's funny, regardless of what I've sold, regardless of the price
Yeah.
point, the initial reaction is that thing is always too much initially, until that, to your point, until they start rationalizing and justifying to themselves emotionally as why this is actually the awesome thing that they have to have right now.
And this is what we're missing in our marketing, Shawn, because this is how we operate as human beings, right? This is our de facto standard. This is our basis.
Yeah.
So our messaging, our communication needs to be emotionally driven, as well as backing that up pragmatically, so that we have, right, we're seduced by the staging and the baked bread in the oven or the hot coffee going on when you do all of the usual tricks that all of these do. Nice set photography with wide angle lenses, with rectilinear lenses, so that it doesn't look like it's a wide angle lens, it looks like a really spatial, all of this sort of stuff. We do all of that, we evoke all of those emotions, we've got them on the hook, but we also need to back that up with the narrative that we want them to tell themselves to close the sale. And if we do it that way round, our prospects don't need to join the dots for them. They do it, we've done it for them. Do you see what I mean?
It's true.
But we're not doing that. We're talking about lots, and we're talking about spaces, and we're talking about square footage, beds and baths and this, that and the other. I would imagine, now you've been in the industry for a long time, no disrespect, but you've been in the industry a long time. I would imagine that there is a significant proportion of people who are looking for a home with this type of spec. You show them something else which has a totally different spec, but they fall in love with it for some reason that you could have not have predicted.
100%.
They were after 4 beds and they settled for 3 because of something else. Am I right or wrong?
You're 1,000%. I had a client, I'll give you a specific example, who spent, they were hell-bent on having a view. Hell-bent. They found a house without a view and spent $1 million more to buy that property.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, this doesn't look anything like the picture you painted in my mind.
No.
And they totally justified it. And it made zero sense to me. And so one thing I have realized, this is like a tangent, but when I set up search parameters, I leave them, and I tell them I'm going to leave them really open so you have the first right of refusal, because I know, and I leave the price a little bit higher, I leave the bedroom counts a little bit more, I leave everything like very loose so they can peruse and enjoy and look at stuff, and it's wild.
See, I think all these online property search sites are missing a trick here, okay? Because you go in there and you find an area and you put in, beds and baths and, square foot and all these parameters. And I think what this is something that maybe AI can come into play. What we need to do is throw in a few curveballs in that search result, because I guarantee you it's going to be worth it over time, because there are people who don't know what they want until they see it. 100%. They think they know what they want. But we're buying emotionally. And so because it's an emotional thing, until we see it, until we can experience it at an empathic level, at a very primal level, we're talking about, very old parts of the brain here. We're not talking about, prefrontal cortex, the new parts of the brain. We're talking very, if you, there was I don't want to go too far off pitch here, right? But there was a study where they surveyed a bunch of people who were subjected to a pre-prepared sales pitch. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I don't know what it was. I think it was something like holiday timeshares or something, something really sort of dodgy. Okay, and the pitch was given, and it was all very well. And then they surveyed these people about what they experienced and what they thought about the pitch and how they felt about and whether they were prepared to buy. And a significant number of people said, I wasn't convinced by the presentation or the pitch. And they said, well, what was it concretely, quantifiably, that turned you off? And without exception, and I don't know the percentage, it was something like 60, 70, 80%. Some I can't remember what it was. It was a survey from a while back.
Sure.
But the majority, they came back and they said, it didn't feel right.
Mm.
Note the use of the word feel.
Yeah.
Okay? It's that thing at the bottom of your stomach that you know when you leave the house or you leave a place and you can't find your phone for 3 milliseconds and you have that drop and like, oh crap, right?
Yeah.
Now, so that is a part of the brain called the amygdala.
Yes.
Okay, it's a very, very old part of is a primeval part of the brain. Some people call it the lizard brain.
Yeah.
Okay, and the amygdala it's part of the limbic system of the brain, and it's responsible for the fight or flight response. Right, so you're confronted by a saber-toothed tiger in the jungle, and you need to decide whether you're going to fight the thing or whether you're going to run for the hills. Okay, but it's a very old part of the brain. It doesn't understand speech.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It works purely from a chemical reaction triggering emotions.
Yes.
Okay, so until we can so we need to have more amygdala-based marketing, if you like. We need to be able to get people to say it felt right.
Yeah.
Now, if you're in finance or if you're in economics or if you're the CEO of a large organization, this sort of stuff is like woo-woo West Coast, top of a mountain retreat sort of crazy talk, right? Tie-dyed, hippy-dippy shit, right? It's like, oh my God, what do you mean? Okay? And that is the problem that we have within marketing, because every other aspect of the business is logical and pragmatic and quantifiable and rational.
Yeah.
And we know all of the pieces of the system and how they work. But when we're talking about marketing, we're not talking about rationalism or pragmatism, because the object of our efforts are human beings, and human beings are anything but rational.
100%.
Right? We cannot be right. It's not a cause and effect type relationship.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
As a result, there is wastage. Right, which obviously, economists, engineers, financiers don't like.
Yeah.
Because they want to see direct correlation between input and output.
Which
right?
is
So
still
wastage is a
ironic.
bad thing.
Which
right?
is still ironic.
But experimentation is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's two sides of the same coin. So herein lies the problem for marketers, and this is whether we're talking about realty or we're talking about any particular business, really, I think. Especially as we're getting more technical and predictable within the systems that we're putting in place within our businesses. But that's a bigger topic, I think.
I love that you say that, because then it goes back to the CEOs, the data people, the very highly left brain, the tax people. That just requires a different sales skill to communicate that, because to your point, emotion creates motion, and it's a different. You have to pull different levers to get the amygdala to kind of like fire off and go. It's interesting that you mentioned that study where people didn't feel right from it. I have found in my own experience, if I'm presenting something, selling it, if I'm not congruent with the product, the company, the service, if I'm not fully 100% sold, meaning I don't feel it and I have to
They
feel
smell it. They smell it on you, don't they?
they will smell it right out of the gate.
Absolutely.
There's even
Yeah.
like as salespeople, we call it like bated breath. Like if you are starving for a commission, they will smell it in the first
They will smell it on
5
you.
seconds
Absolutely.
and
They will
run.
smell the desperation.
They totally do. And so internally, as a salesperson, there is a lot of like high level training to make yourself congruent with the product, the service, in yourself, in the message and messaging that you're packaging and presenting. Because yeah, again, if they smell it on you, it's they run and
Game over.
they
Game
they
over. You must well turn around and walk away.
and you'll get some aloof if you're asking the question. You'll get an aloof like the other person did XYZ better, the other product was that, but ultimately there was a feeling disconnect as to what drove that. Gee, this has been just 100% like a masterclass with you. I truly appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I'm very glad you found value. That was the point of the exercise, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I have 2 pages of notes, and so you 100% delivered, and I appreciate that. If people want to reach out to you or your company, what's the best way?
Best way to reach out to me personally is on LinkedIn. Would you believe, Shawn, there is only one G Ranasinha on LinkedIn? Can you imagine?
Really?
There is only one G Ranasinha on LinkedIn. So find me on LinkedIn. I post at least twice a week. I post 1-minute videos, which I've been doing for the last 2-3 years.
Brilliant.
On various subjects of marketing that I think would be useful, or things that have pissed me off that week. To be honest, it's all different things. It's a marriage of the two. Quite happy to connect with anybody on LinkedIn. If I can offer any help, advice, recommendations, opinion, whatever else, that'd be great. Otherwise, obviously, you can find us at Kexino, which is kexino.com, Kexino. Yeah, we're happy to have a conversation. Talk is free. Yeah, if we can help, and absolutely, because I just want to make sure that we're, the reason why I do all of this stuff, Shawn, is, it's not so much to feather my nest, right? It's to help. If I can help somebody dodge a bullet by avoiding the snake oil sellers, the marketing bros out there, the guys who crouch in front of Lambos throwing gang signs, right? Those guys, right? Oh, all of that crap, right? Because so many times I'm having conversations with business owners who are crying on the phone, literally, because they've spent a frig ton of money and seen absolutely zero return on that because they've believed the BS, right? So if I can come up with something which resonates and which sounds logical and can steer, even if it doesn't mean that we work together, it doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is that you avoid, because there's plenty of sharks in your industry, but there's plenty of sharks in our industry too, right? And that's the only reason I'm doing this. Absolutely the honest reason.
That's the podcast. I feel the same way. I think there's a lot of misinformation. We joked about it on the podcast that agents don't have the best reputation, and if I can help raise the bar, even for a small handful of people, it's going to change the shape of the industry. And that's 100% why I spend so many hours of my life putting out this content. So I appreciate what you do.
Well, I'm glad you found it useful. It's great. And, if you ever want to do a part 2, then let me know.
Let's make it happen. I'll have my assistant reach out to you.
Okay.
And that's a wrap.